Okay. All right, cool. Okay. Oh, we could leave it open for a little bit more. Is Shane still out there? Okay, so he's just directing people here. Okay. Welcome everybody. For those of you on Zoom and the brave souls that are here, and people wandering where the soccer practice is. It's over there, by the way, or people looking for the splash pad, which is over there. They're playing Weezer right now, so there's some tunes to jam out to. So welcome to our second community redistricting meeting. We had our first community meeting this week at the Civic Center Library community rooms. And this is our second meeting in District 4. And we are joined today. Oh, just real quickly, if anyone needs the restrooms, they are located over there. And if anybody requires translation services here, we do have Jesus and his team here with translation services. And if you are on Zoom and require translation services, please use the translation service on Zoom and select Spanish. So we are joined today by Jane Hood of Q2 Research and Data, and she's going to go over the redistricting process. After she's done, we'll open it up to public feedback and comments. Again, we want to generate as much feedback and comments and input as possible. This is not a time to talk about problems you're having with the website. After Jane's finished with her presentation, I'll ask her what to do if you are having problems with the redistricting map. Without further ado, I'm going to toss it over to Jane Hood of Q2 Data and Research. Jane?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Thanks for making time to participate on your Saturday. Just want to say I'm a little under the weather, so if I'm coughing or getting some water, please excuse me. I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe. And I'm going to share my screen and try and keep it as short as possible on the slides. If someone could actually allow me to share my screen, that would be great. But essentially, just going to go over a little bit about redistricting so that if anyone's new to the process, we can all be on the same page about what's happening, why it's happening. And today's really about getting public input. So we're doing these community workshops to try and go out to the community and out to the public for, hearing about your opinions on your communities, on your districts, what's working, what's not working, and specifically, we're looking for input on communities of interest, which we'll talk about what that is, but essentially for redistricting, we want to try and keep communities together in the districts. So
I think you could share your screen now, Jane.
Thank you. So yes, I'll try and keep it short. There's a lot of information that I could go into. If you would like more information on any of these, feel free to ask me a question at the end. Or alternatively, you could watch a much longer training that my colleague Karen McDonald did at the January 12th council hearing, and that's recorded and on the website. So feel free to take a look at that as well. So I'll jump right into this. Again, just going to go over sort of some background about redistricting, the criteria for redistricting, and then talk about communities of interest and how you all can get involved in the process moving forward. So as you probably know, in 2017, the city of Oceanside transitioned from an at-large election system to a by-district election system. So now you have 4 council districts, and members of the city council have to live in their district in order to represent it. And you, the voters, choose your representative for your district. So that is how the system works. And now we have to redistrict, which happens every 10 years after the release of the census. So that's where we're at, basically, from a bird's eye view, 30,000 feet. And these are the criteria that you have to follow as a city in California for redistricting. And you'll see that they are ranked in order. So the first one, the most important one, obviously, you have to comply with the US and California constitutions. And here really this means for redistricting that the districts have to have equal population. So the whole point of redistricting really at the end of the day is about equalizing population between the districts so that everything is fair and equitable. The second one, of course, non-negotiable as well. We have to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. The third one is about contiguity, which means it's a fancy word for your districts have to be in one piece. They can't be, you know, have chunks all over the city. They have to be in one area, all connected. The fourth one, which is what we are mostly here to talk about today, is that districts have to respect, or should, to the extent practicable, respect local neighborhoods and communities of interest. So we're looking to hear from you, the experts of Oceanside, on where the communities of interest are, what communities you're a part of, what are the issues that are bringing together different communities across the city, and why should they be kept together in a district. And we'll get into more details on that, but just want to note that communities of interest for redistricting cannot include relationships to political parties. So these are not, you know, partisan communities, and this is definitely designed to be a nonpartisan and independent process. So just want to make that clear. The fifth criteria we have to think about is that boundaries should be easily identifiable. They should follow main roads, things like that. And then the last one, or number 6, is compactness. So, you know, trying to keep those districts, you know, close together and not spread out too far across the city in ways that don't make sense. And then, as I mentioned, we're obviously not here to discriminate or favor political parties. So that's a lot, but really today, the number 4 is our focus, which is about communities of interest and local neighborhoods. And so just want to give you some background data on what came out of the 2020 census. Basically, for redistricting from the 2020 census, the city of Oceanside has a total of 174,578 people. And then just some simple math to get how many people we want in each district. There are 4 districts, so we'll divide that total by 4. And so we're looking to end up around 43,645 people per district. Of course, you can go a little bit above and below that, and generally you try and stay plus or minus 5% around that number, but we're trying to equalize the population as best as we can. Here are your current boundaries. Here's your current map, and you'll see, just to explain what these labels are on the map. So we'll have the first number is obviously the district number, so district 1 down here, and then the percent below it tells us how far above or below that 43,000 ideal population per district we are. So 1 is a little underpopulated. It's at minus 8.82% below the ideal population. We have 2 and 4 up here, and they're pretty well balanced at 0.39% overpopulated, and 4 is a little bigger at 3.91% overpopulated. And then 3 down here is also a little bit high. So generally, those are where your starting point is with the current boundaries. And so again, what we're here to talk about today is, you know, we haven't started to draw any maps yet. We just are looking to get input from the community so we can bring that to council and we can consider that as they start to draw these lines. So again, this is a really important process to hear from people, and it's an important time in the process to hear from people because we're just at the very beginning trying to get an assessment of, you know, where are those neighborhoods and communities of interest that want to be together and should be considered when we're drawing lines. And obviously, you all just went through this not but a few years ago, but things change even in just a couple years. So perhaps there are new communities of interest, perhaps there are new issues that you're facing, perhaps your old communities as well. We want to hear about all of them. And so, yeah, just in general, communities of interest are described as a geographic area where residents share similar interests. So that's a very broad definition, but the law really doesn't limit what kinds of interests we should consider here. So it's really up to you all about who live and work in Oceanside to tell us what are the issues that bring communities together. What is a community here? And I'll give a few examples, but just generally to get you sort of thinking about what your community of interest might be. Perhaps you're brought together over economic issues, such as common employment. You all work in a similar industry, and you experience similar things at your job. Perhaps you're looking to expand economic opportunities in your area. You want to bring in local businesses. You want to bring in, youth jobs programs. All of those things could be what's bringing your community of interest together. Social interests could also bring your community together. So some obvious ones are schools. If everyone in your neighborhood sends their kids to the same school, that could be your community. Culture is another big one. If you live in an area where everyone shares a similar cultural or language background, perhaps they have cultural resource centers and events together, that could be your community of interest. Transportation is another big one. So working on improving roads in your neighborhood, working on getting public transit access to your neighborhood. Perhaps you're improving a park in your neighborhood and everyone is sort of together on that, working together. So these are just general examples. Obviously, you all know what's going on down there better than I do. And so just generally neighborhoods are thought of as communities of interest, but also your community of interest could be, bigger than your neighborhood. It could be smaller than your neighborhood. It's pretty open-ended to what feels important to you. So we're hoping today that you might tell us a little bit about your community of interest. And when you, if you choose to, we're kind of looking for two things. So what bonds your community, as I just listed? What are those issues that are important to you all? What's bringing you together? What issues do you want to see solved in the next 10 years in your community? And then the second part, which is super important for me as a demographer, is where is your community located? So being as specific as possible about those boundaries of your community allows us to put that on our map and have the council and everyone consider it as we're drawing lines. So there are multiple ways to do that. You could just tell me the boundaries today when you're talking about it. You could write an email where you say, it starts north, the northern boundary is at this street, the southern boundary is this street, east and west boundaries are here, if that's something that works for you. You could also use the state's community of interest mapping tool, which is a free online tool, and you can submit them to the city through that. So there are instructions on the redistricting webpage if you would like to look into that. Whatever works for you. If a paper map is easier, just drawing it out, we'll take anything. And we do invite you to submit your COI or community of interest input by February 10th so that we can consider them while we are drawing the first round of draft maps. So we can hear from communities of interest at any point, but it's super useful to get that before we start drawing maps so we can have that from the beginning. You all are here today, so I'm sure you understand why it's important to participate, but just as a quick plug, obviously it's super important that you're here, and this process would not be possible without your public input and opinion and community knowledge. So really thank you for being here. And we invite you to tell other folks to come out and participate in this process. It only happens once every 10 years, so it's really important to shape a redistricting plan that provides your community with an opportunity to elect a candidate that represents you and your issues. So this is a great way to get involved in your city, and we thank you in advance for your participation. Another way to participate is that the city has actually made a free online mapping application that's available to the public right now, and it's on the redistricting webpage. And this allows you to draw your own districts, how you want the map to look. And you can also look at data associated with the districts you're drawing with the city. If you have any questions, you can, take a look on there. And just want to say that obviously, mapping tools can be a little bit difficult to use, especially if you're not big on technology. So we will, and we are setting up office hours to work with myself and my team to help you use the mapping tool or answer any questions you might have about it. And so I believe that we can announce the dates of those. They're not in this presentation, but at the end, I'll let the staff announce the dates that we've selected for those. We just finalized that. So looking forward to working with you all on getting your maps drawn and answering any questions. And the link is right there at the bottom. It's redrawmyoceanside.publicredistricting.com. So lastly, just an informational slide about how to get involved. There's so many different ways, mentioned a few of them. Online, obviously, you can go to the website and see all of this information. You can draw district maps, you can draw communities of interest, you can send us an email, you can give us a phone call, or you could just drop off something in person at the city clerk's office. And obviously you're here today, so you can come to any of these meetings as well. We want to make this, again, as accessible to as many people as possible. So please do encourage your neighbors and friends and family to participate in a way that works for them. And yeah, thank you again for participating. And just putting up again as for your information, the upcoming meetings that we have, we're on January 22nd already, can't believe it. And this was community outreach meeting number 2. So again, we're here to receive input from the community. This week, upcoming week, we'll go to council for another hearing where we will present all of the community of interest testimony received so far. And then they'll give us some directions on how to, start drawing those maps. We'll have 2 more community outreach meetings the following week at Lincoln Middle School and Melba Bishop Recreation Center, as well as with online options, hybrid options like today. And then at the February 9th meeting at council, we'll show some visualizations and show some maps. And then we will work together to draw live and in person those draft maps, which we'll post after that meeting. And then we will receive some feedback at the next 2 council hearings. So that's sort of the overview of how this process is going to move forward. And I'll stop talking now. That's plenty of from me. And now I want to turn it to you all and hear about your public comment on this process and then answer any questions. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll pass it back to those in the room.
All right, thank you, Jane. We do have the office hours finalized. I don't know if it's the dates that you sent us, the proposed dates, and those do work for us.
Okay, great. Yes, I just don't have them pulled up in front of me, so I was wondering if someone had them.
I do.
Sorry.
I have them right in front of me. So Q2 data and research is going to have office hours where if you need, as Jane said, if you need help with the maps, need help drawing stuff, have questions or anything regarding the redistricting process, you could show up for virtual office hours Thursday, January 27th from 3 to 5. And I'll have this all posted on the city clerk's website as well. Friday, January 28th from 3 to 5. Saturday, January 29th from 12 to 1. And Monday, February 7th from 4 to 6. And we will make sure that this information is distributed to everybody in case you want to show up for office hours. I'm also available. I've already helped out 2 people with their maps. So one of those was probably one of the ones we submitted. But if you have any questions or technical difficulties, this will be a time for you to ask the experts, and they're here and they're willing to help, as well as myself and my team. We are here to make this process as easy, fair, and transparent as possible. Currently right now, we're trying to get the PA system to work. So I apologize if I'm yelling. If you need me to yell louder, I can. I was a theater student, understudy for Jean Valjean, but I won't sing. I'll leave that to Peter if he's still around. So right now we're gonna take public testimony. This is your feedback, your input on your community of interest, not necessarily has to do with District 4. If you're from another district or you just want to talk about districts in general, that's perfectly fine. So, but what I do ask is that you come up here and talk, because our webcam and microphone for those on Zoom is right here, and they could hear you perfectly if you're right here. And also this meeting is being recorded. It'll be uploaded onto YouTube if you want to watch this later. And I know some people have a fear of public speaking. Don't worry, we have forms in the front and in the back for you to write down your input, and you can give it to any of my city clerk staff that are waving their hands right now. And we'll take that input from you. So feel free to come on up. We'll give you about 3 minutes or so. And then once we gather all the input from the people in the public, we'll move to the people on Zoom for your input. And if you wish to speak, go ahead and raise your hand. It'll be at the bottom. Go to reactions and then click on raise hand. And so that way we know that you want to provide your input and comment. Once we do all that, then we'll open up to questions and answers regarding the process. So come on down and feel free to talk to Jane. And if you need a map pulled up, I'm pretty sure Jane could pull one up like she did in the last community meeting. And come on down. Joan, you want to provide a comment?
And my point of being here is always to participate. So first, I want to do 3 things. First, I want to define the Seaside Neighborhood. It is Oceanside Boulevard, Coast Highway. Then it's really the single family section. I'm not saying we're not providing our housing, we are, but it's zoned single family. And it goes out to Brook Street, to Vine, then jogs over to Vine, and actually goes all the way into Crown Heights. And that is Seaside, and part of it's called Crown Heights. And it actually comes up Missouri, I believe. Missouri. That is the single family section of Seaside. And so when we talk about that, it has very different issues than some of the other streets. So that's the first thing. The second question, or my second input is, I think it's District 3. Yeah, at the bottom. I've always called that the Wish We Were in Carlsbad district. It seems to be the bottom side of Oceanside. And I think that's not serving the needs of, especially 4 neighborhoods. Seaside, Southo, Loma Alta, and Fire Mountain have common interests. We have traffic problems. We're probably the first neighborhoods that should get comprehensive traffic calming. We need to work together. We have ADU issues. We have short-term rental issues. And so those 4 neighborhoods specifically need to work together. We also embrace Loma Alta Creek as a future economic engine and open space. So those 4 neighborhoods, Southo, Fire Mountain, Seaside, as I described it, and Loma Alta. Probably Alta Fusat, I don't know. There's a big question where that ends. But pretty much El Camino, 78, the beach, and Mission. Then my third question that I'd really like to see addressed is, we are a very diverse neighborhood. The Union Tribune just put out things about neighborhoods, and we are vastly different from Carlsbad. And that's one of the reasons I live in Oceanside. I chose not to live in Carlsbad. And so we're at risk of losing that due to gentrification, due to housing costs, and things like that. So we have people that need representation. And my question is that actually a stripe kind of down the middle of town that could be a district that could have representation? And I'm specifically talking about East Side, Fireside, out to Libby Lake, and uniting people that could come together to fight these common issues and have some real power, instead of being diluted, as some of us are, by short-term rental owners and other people who get into the political process. So ultimately it comes down to votes, and we are the residents, and we need to align to the residents. Thank you.
Can you state your first and last name for
the
demography?
Joan Bachman, Seaside Neighborhood.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else like to provide public input?
Yes, my name is Ron Peters. I live in the River Ranch neighborhood. We are just off the 76 near the Lowe's. So my question was more of a general mapping question, because I noticed that in our area, I'm in District 4. And what I do notice is that there's this piece of District 1 that kind of jaunts out into our area. And I just kind of wanted to ask about this, that area, if you could zoom in a little bit. Why does that line have to be so crooked? I realize that it's the whole redistricting is to balance the numbers between the districts. But what I see is that area, and this is a much better map. I would love to see better maps printed and sent out, at least a map of the district boundaries that's better represented, because what you get in the mail is not anything like she's presenting right now. But what I see is this area of purple that jaunts into 4, you know, and I think there could be a better line maybe that between 3, 1, and 4, that's a more straight line. It looks like it used to be, but then part of District 1 suddenly ventured off into District 4. I realize there's populations, there's areas that have to do with stores and commercial properties that isn't really a residence, but I see quite a bit that seems like it's just such a crooked map. Why? Why are we doing this if we're really trying to represent our city as a whole? It should be somewhat even and not have to venture into some areas and cut back. And I'm not making any claims to this, but I know in past history, my studies in college, you know, I have a professor that told me, you know, this was way up in San Francisco. They took a 1 square block and went 20 blocks into another neighborhood, so the person living there could still run for the district that they were with. I'm not making any claims to that. The city of Oceanside just recently switched to districts. We've lived here for over 30 years. So, but I think that line is really crooked and could be straightened out somewhat. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I can provide any public comment? Jimmy? Nice to see you. Good to see you too, Jimmy.
Yes, Jimmy Knott. I live over in District 3, but looking at the map on District 4, if you look at it, you look at the terrain there, and you find Garrison Creek. Garrison Creek leads directly into Loma Alta Creek, and it bisects right into it. You have a lot on the map here that is terrain-wise, and also, I can't, sorry, it's that ticked out for a minute. It takes, and you know, looking at the way that the water takes and travels into the city, the map does not reflect our terrain. And you take and you look at the way building is allowed to take place. You have the filtering, or like you take and say, when it rains, you have what happens is that it takes and travels down, if you have open ground, into the aquifers. But what happens is if you allow building, it runs off and it runs into the streams. And if it's taken and running down like Garrison Creek, it goes into the Loma Alta Creek. And who does that impact? Me and my community. Now, if you have a representative that's representing District 4, whose interests are they going to take more precedent in? Is it going to be District 4 or District 3? This is where you are having a lot of different problems, because even now over the past year or so, with the different representation from the different districts, you're finding these walls of demarcation, like, who am I going to listen to? Who am I not going to listen to? We need to take and show either unity on the different terrains and habitats or not. If we're not going to do it, then we need to have some overriding laws that says you have to do it. And this is where taking and having a habitat rule that takes, or law that says, okay, you as a council member have to take and look at the habitats and look at the terrain, and you are now part of this whole city of Oceanside. I guess that was my
That was a 3-minute one, yeah.
So that's what I want people to do, is to think about that. If you don't, I'm going to be in trouble. My people I represent going to be in trouble. I've waded years ago, chest deep in water rescuing people. I don't want to do that again. And I don't think you want me to rescuing 80 and 90-year-old people in the middle of the night. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just for our demographer to take notes.
Okay. This is weird. Hi, Arlene Hammerschmidt, resident of District 3. I'd like to throw out an idea to everybody who ends up seeing this, and that is to change the way we have representation in the city and add 2 at-large council members. So we have an at-large mayor, 2 at-large council members, and 4 council members that represent districts. Because just as Jimmy mentioned, there are a lot of just district specific votes happening. And there are many people who feel that the overall well-being of the city is being ignored for specific district interests. So just throw that out. I know it would require a charter change, which would be a vote, but it's just an idea, a concept I want to share with everybody. So I feel like 4 years ago we messed up. I don't think that map is good at all for a whole lot of reasons. District 3, I'm a resident of District 3. There are very few common interests in District 3, from the shoreline at South Oceanside all the way to the extra finger that is the south, whatever, the extra, that feels like Carlsbad, but it used to be Carlsbad, but now it's Oceanside. The lake area, the boot, thank you. Doesn't look like Italy, but that's okay. Anyhow, it doesn't fit. So I really think that I like Jimmy's idea. He's really actually talking about a watershed district. If you live within a watershed, you have a common interest. That's a nice idea. I also feel that our lower income communities, people of color and lower income, should be the majority within one district somehow. When I visualize the map, I'd like to see who has a huge community interest. Everybody that lives along the coast. That's a district. The ocean influences them. And then so a parallel swath close to the coast with our 40,000 plus or minus, and another parallel swath a little further inland, because those are all approximately the same aged homes, at least, and attach Haney Hills with the boot, and attach, Southmore Hills District 2, whatever has to be done for population. And there are areas that are really not contiguous. They are divided or cut off by major highways. Like the boot is cut off, but there seems like there's nothing we can do about that. We can do better than this. That's all I'm saying. We can do a whole lot better than this, and not just little population chunks to even up the population. Was that my timer?
That was your timer.
That works. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Erin. And anybody else would like to talk to him? All right, we'll go. Oh, let me scooch closer to the webcam here. And all right, so now we'll go to our Zoom audience. Again, if you want to provide a public comment, use the raise hand feature. It should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You'll see a button that says reactions. Click on that, then click on raise hand. And so that way we know that you want to speak and make a public comment and provide some input for the redistricting. So do we have anybody with their hands raised? We have nobody with their hands raised? Oh, yes, we do. We have Rob Howard.
Yeah, I just want to, Rob Howard, I'm in District 4. I want to reiterate a couple of things. I've been working with the map online. It's a little bit difficult. And to the issue, looking at what the law says, as we look at the population, as we look at communities of interest, as we look at the racial makeup of these districts, I, for one, do not want to see the coast all in one district. Number one, it's kind of conflicting to me in my head to say people are focusing just on the district, and then at the same time, we want to put all of the coast on in one district. Having them split requires people to work together to get things done. Other districts, I personally think every district ought to have some part of that coast because we have to work together. But I recognize what I'm asking for with all four being on there would require a major change, and we can't be, it is my understanding that we shouldn't be doing a major change at this time, but we should be thinking about how people, even in District 4, are affected by the issues that go on the coast. The population is lower in many of those areas due to rentals. So one, I'm looking forward to getting the ability to go in and talk to them about adjustments to the map. But I think if we want to think about the city as a whole, then things like putting everyone on the coast in one district is one of the things that I would be very much against. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. And now we see Jane McKenzie. You have your hand raised. And you should have a prompt to unmute yourself. Oh, there you go.
Yep, all good. Thank you, Zeb. I would just like to echo Linda Slater's comments at the meeting a couple of days ago. I am in District 4, and the other gentleman that spoke mentioned the kind of purple thumb kind of sticking out there in District 4. And I would like to see that purple thumb extended to Old Grove to include the Oceana Mission 55 plus housing. I feel that there is a lot of
Jane, I'm just going to pause you real quick. Is there a way you could talk closer to your microphone? We're having a little difficulty hearing you.
Sure, and I apologize for that. I'm on.
Oh no, not a problem. I paused your time, so you're good.
Okay, I'm on an old PC here with
okay.
Cheesy little microphone because my office is more comfortable than my laptop with my dining table. But
okay.
Anyway, I just see a benefit of having as many of the 55 plus communities in the same district as possible. And I realize that's not totally possible because they're kind of random. But I agree with Linda's comment the other day that the District 1 could conceivably combine the large Oceana, which is all Vista Campana and so forth. And then we've got Rosemary Way, which is a senior community, Oregano, Curry, and San Pablo. Those are senior communities. And there's 4 Oceana missions off of Old Grove. So I would think it would be kind of appropriate to extend District 1 boundary to include those communities. And there are a bunch of 55 plus manufactured home communities, and those are kind of random, and I'm not too familiar with where they are now. Would be the ones off El Camino Real and, oh, I guess they're in District 2, looking closely here. But anyway, the point is as many 55 plus communities to advocate for interests of seniors as possible. Thank you, Zeb.
Thank you, Jane. Good to hear you. Is there anybody else on Zoom that wishes to make a public comment or provide input? Please use the reaction button and click on raise hand so we know that you would like to provide some input and make a comment. Do we have anybody else? No? Okay, so going once, going twice. All right, gone. All right, so we'll now,
oh, Zeb,
oh wait, we have one? Okay, Jimmy, we see you.
Hey, good
Okay.
morning, good afternoon, everyone. And I apologize because I'm currently in the process of walking my daughters into ballet. So if you hear any chatter in the background, that's what's going on right now. But I wasn't gonna speak today, but I just want to share that I had the opportunity to spend several hours with the map Tuesday night, and then yesterday afternoon, maybe about 4 hours. I have found a lot of technical difficulties that when you play with different scenarios at times, you can't delete what you've created. And so then you're stuck with overlapping districts, and it plays with the numbers to the point that it adds up to like 190,000 population. So there's issues there. I definitely hear and agree with what everyone is saying, but one of the complications that I have ran into is that the numbers don't line up. So like, and what I mean by that is with District 1, if you include Fire Mountain and the coast into District 1, now you have a deviation a lot higher, and that population jumps up to about 52,000, including Fire Mountain and the coast. However, if you just include the coast, the rest of the coast and the deviation lines up, and that's possible. And when I hear about moving all the way to Old Grove, I totally agree with that being a community of interest. The only problem is there's a lot of apartment complexes up in that area, and that moves the deviation really high for District 1, again, above 50,000. And so you run into these number situations where going that far east, either by the coast or by Old Grove, one of the things that I have found helpful to help with the deviations and the numbers is using major roads. So if District 1 is split by the 5 highway, so to include the entire coast, that actually works, but it only works if you actually move everything east of El Camino Real into District 4, if that makes sense. So you would take on South O, but you would have to let go of Oceana to make the numbers work. And then another thing that I found out too was that if you swap the 76 and make the 76 an actual border, so now you're using a main road. So everything north of the 76 goes into District 2, which makes sense because that's the Chavez Middle School area, and all the kids in the valley go to Chavez Middle School. And then you make everything south of the 76, you move that into D4, and that helps with the numbers there. And then if you use Oceanside Boulevard as another border, which is a main road between District 3 and District 4, so you move everything south of Oceanside Boulevard into District 3, that helps with the numbers there. Again, I understand that, it makes it very hard with our communities of interest to make sure that everyone is represented and in the districts that they want, but we also have to, it's the numbers and making sure that the deviations, also you don't have them. So there's not these huge discrepancies. So again, I'm hearing what everyone is saying. And so like I'm using major roads. So I'm saying El Camino Real, and even possibly looking into extending District 1 to El Camino Real all the way through. So instead of cutting off the middle of the neighborhood of Fusat, you're moving District 1 into El Camino Real and Mission Avenue. But this way, you want to keep the Mid and Deep Valley together, which is the Fireside, Douglas, Los Arbolitos, Inwood District 2. So again, this is me using major highway. So based on numbers, Southwell works to move into District 1, but if you incorporate Fire Mountain, that's about 13,000 people total, which will put District 1, you know,
Jimmy,
in the 50,000.
Your 3 minutes are up, Jimmy.
All right, thank you. No, you're good. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, if you have anybody here has additional feedback or thought of something on the way home, feel free to email us or contact the city clerk's office, and we can include that input into our public record. Does anybody else on Zoom wish to provide a public comment? Please use the raise hand feature. At the bottom of your screen should be a smiley face that says reactions. If you click on that and click on raise hand, we'll know that you would wish to speak. Anybody else? You're closer to it, so I'm always relying on Thomas. Good. Thank you. Thank you. So that concludes the public comment. Again, we will have office hours. We will have that posted. If anyone has any technical difficulties, and I encountered some, Jane, what should they do if they do have encountered technical difficulties?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just actually, I realized I didn't mention it, so I'm just going to share my screen really quickly, and appreciate everyone who spent time on the tool so far and giving us feedback. And it seems like you guys are really the experts on this now. So let me just share the screen and show. There is actually a help button. So obviously come to office hours, come talk to us. We can help you right then. But if you just have a small question or you can't make it for whatever reason, we do respond to the help button. So at the top right of the tool here, there's a help button. You can read the user guide, and you can also contact support. So just send us an email, and our technical support team will look into your issue and make sure that you get the help that you need. And so that is actually, you can just click and then it'll open your email. So thanks, and we look forward to hearing your feedback and questions and helping you get the map that you want to see made.
Perfect, thank you. And of course, there will also be office hours as well. Thank you all for your public input. We're gonna move to the Q&A portion. Thank you so much, everybody, for being respectful of each other, not attacking each other. We are going to disagree. There's going to be some disagreements on the maps, on the redistricting. That's okay. Everybody has an opinion, and that's what we want. We want as many opinions and input as possible. Even if it's, let's go back to at-large elections, or elect 2 at-large council members and 4 district council members. We want to hear all feedback. Oh, I hate the process. This is a waste of money. That's fine. We want to hear every single feedback so we can improve the process and make sure that we develop maps that are that include all the feedback we've gotten at these meetings. So we'll start with some Q&A. We'll have a Q&A session. Again, just come up here. If you have a question for the demographer or city staff, we'll just do a quick Q&A. Nothing about technical issues or support. That you'd have to contact the demographer. So Joan Bachman, come on down. Dude, the price is not right yet.
I'm gonna get our exercise running up here.
You get your steps.
Again, Joan Bachman, Seaside. So a simple technical question. Jimmy Figueroa mentioned that if you're messing around with the maps, just to try stuff, you might end up with a map you don't like. So is there a way for us to, are the maps numbered or something? So we can send you an email and say, please delete map X. Like if I'm just playing around and I just do some weird group and I don't want that map to be considered, is there a way to have you delete it? Thank you. That's a map I created, I mean.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So you can certainly send us an email, afterwards, and just add on to your comment and say, explain whatever you need to about your map submission. And there's also, when you are making your districts and when you're submitting your plan, there's a comment section at the end. So if you wanted to tell us anything there, you could also let us know, that information there. Thanks for your question.
Anybody else have any questions?
I see one on Zoom.
I do have a question. And I got this question, and I think it also is part of your question as well, as why is it not like a straight line down? And also there's like a little neighborhood on the northern part of Oceanside where the whole neighborhood is in District 1, but a couple of houses across the street and this little tiny cul-de-sac are in District 2. Can you talk about kind of census blocks and how that factors into it?
Let me unmute myself. Yes, so, oops. And just confirming, you guys are you guys seeing the maps again?
No, I think you have to share your screen there.
Sorry, I thought I was, but just got a few different tabs open, so thanks. So here's the map again, and you might not be able to see it super clearly on here. It's a little bit darker on the online tool, so you should be able to see it there. But basically, when we're redistricting, we have to use what's called census blocks. So you'll see right here, they're sort of drawn out. Let me make them a little thicker. But those are how the census kind of calculates population totals. And so that is what we are using here. They're a little bit darker. And sometimes they follow streets. Sometimes they are bigger than streets, smaller than streets. And so those are the building blocks of districts. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So let me just add the population label here.
Yeah.
So you can see actually,
there you go.
Turn on the labels. Each of these blocks, each of these little pieces, puzzle pieces has a population in them. And so when we add that block, it adds, this block would add 233 people to a district. And so we can only add using census blocks. So in some areas, they look a little bit weird. And in some areas, they just follow streets. So you might see that as you're drawing things.
So I think it's area 323 or 328 on the corner there of District 1 that borders District 2.
328.
There you go. The River Tree Drive.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So you see how River Tree Drive goes from District 1 to District 2. Yeah, it's like 27 is the district block. Because we've been getting comments from those people that live in that neighborhood as to why they're in District 2 and they're not in District 1.
Yeah, no, and that's something that that's a great piece of input because we can make those changes in this new map. And also want to say that without getting too technical, the census actually has changed the census blocks since 2010, which is what you guys were using when you drew them in 2017, because that was the most recent census at that time. So the blocks may have looked like that in 2010, but now they look a little bit different. So we can, totally reunite communities that were like a little bit split on a border. That's a super great piece of feedback to make sure that we include in the new maps.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question? Jimmy? I can repeat the question if you want.
No, my comment, it was more of a comment.
I'm sorry, Jimmy not had his hand raised, but we'll go to you, Jimmy Fig. We have two Jimmys here, so it's a little confusing. Jimmy Figueroa?
So am I good or?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, oh no, what I was gonna say is that you can erase like when you make mistakes or when you add something. But there's an icon that you click that once you want to create, like, let's say, okay, this is the district that I like, and you create it and you click the icon, make differences. It's later on when you try to go back to that same district to revisit it. Once you've clicked the icon, make differences, it no longer allows you to modify it or take districts off. And that was a technical issue that gets frustrating because you may create 4 districts and then you start playing with the numbers because there's 2,000 people, if you include this border, or 1,500 people if you include that border, and then you try to remove it, you can't do that. And so that's a technical issue that I just want to let everyone that's listening to know about. That kind of gets very frustrating. And so that was just my comment. Okay. It's after you make the icon make differences that you're not able to erase what you've created and to modify. And that's it.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you again for that, bring that up, and just totally welcome you to send us an email of what's happening or come to office hours and we can get that sorted, because you can remove areas after you add them using the remove button, but just want to make sure that you're able to get everything sorted and we're not missing anything. So thanks.
It won't remove it. So we've tried, and I worked with a few other people, and they had the same issue too. It won't let you remove it. Once you click the icon, make differences, it won't let you go back and remove it. It does prior to that, but not once you.
Let me take a look into that and help you offline, just so we can make sure that that gets solved for you. Thanks.
Now we're going to go to Jimmy Knott. And then we'll go to you, sir.
One thing that I was sitting thinking and reflecting on city council meetings and also planning commissions and a few of the other commissions that are involved. Our staff knows projections, analysis of short-term census increases in communities. They know what the number of people that will be in the interim coming in and living in certain communities. Are we bound only by the current census, or can we take and look at potential projections that staff already knows are going to be increases, and also for future developments? And can also the public consider future developments into each of these districts and also the city itself in certain areas? Because this may have huge impacts on a lot of considerations onto each district as it is blocked in.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And of course, you know, you can consider whatever factor feels important to you as you're making your comments and providing input. But by law, the redistricting process can only consider the data from the 2020 census. So unfortunately, that's the time period that we have the complete count for. And so that is the data that we use. And then every 10 years, that's why part of the reason why the census is super important to get that captured.
Did you?
Yes, I had a question. I just wanted to find out what the target number was for each of the 4 districts. I mean, if we're going to go in and try to utilize the map to try to balance it or redraw lines or whatever, what's the target that we're trying to hit to make 4 equal populations?
Yes, so the ideal population per district is 43,645. And so actually when you are drawing your districts, you can pull up the statistics tab, which is at the bottom of the online tool, and that'll show you how many people are in and what % you are away from the ideal population. But in general, we're trying to get at 43,645 people. That's the ideal population, to have them all perfectly balanced. And as I mentioned, you can have a little bit of wiggle room, generally plus or minus 5% outside of that, and that's still considered balanced.
Any other questions? Any questions on Zoom? Please raise your hand if you have any questions. Again, it's the smiley face at the bottom that says reactions. If you click on that and click on raise hand, we'll see that your hand is raised and we'll call on you. Seeing none? No. Again, thank you all for coming out and participating in this process. We need as many voices and opinions as possible. The next meeting will be the public hearing at the city council meeting on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. And please tell your friends and neighbors about the process. We want to get as many people coming out to this and tell us about their communities of interest, tell us their opinions, because this ultimately helps shape the map, the draft maps that are going to be designed. And again, we'll publish the office hours for Jane and her team. If you have any technical questions or want to help with the map, they're there to help, as well as the city clerk staff. I've already helped out a couple of people, and that was why I had a question about the census blocks, because like one little neighborhood was like one sliver, and then the other neighborhood was a bunch, and there's a couple of islands. So it's a little bit confusing, but we're here to help and to make the process transparent and as user-friendly as possible. So anybody else have any questions? Going once, going twice? All right. Well, thank you all for coming out. And,
yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, everyone. This was a really, it's really great to hear people on their Saturdays taking time to use the tools and ask questions and give us your feedback. So it's super useful, and just encourage everyone to get, your neighbors and friends to check out these meetings or participate virtually if they can.
All right, thank you so much. And then, of course, thank you to our interpretation team. Jimmy Knott, you have a question?
Yes. What if we have like a meeting that's in between the rest of the meetings in our community? Can the speaker from the city come to that and give us some information?
That would be me. My voice is a little hoarse because I've been doing that. I've been meeting with groups and neighborhoods and organizations. So if anybody would like me to come out and talk about the redistricting process, the question was, can there be meetings between the public and community meetings with city staff? Yeah, and the answer is yes. You could just send me an email, say, hey, I'd like you to come out and talk to our neighborhood. I'd be more than happy to come on out and give a small presentation, do some Q&A, and even collect some community of interest forms from your neighborhood, because that's what we need to do, is collect as many of that as possible to define those communities of interest. As Jane mentioned, we can't define that. That's defined by the population of the city of Oceanside. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming out, and please tell your friends and neighbors, and I hope to see you at the next one. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your Saturday.